So the European Union has finally decided on a $60 a barrel ceiling for Russian oil. Now I guess European Commission President and de facto unelected Queen of Europe, Ursula von der Leyen, can brag about how Europe is united for Ukraine.
Together with our partners, we stand united and firm in our opposition to Russia's atrocious war.
Yeah, well, that sure didn't take very long. Von der Leyen also tweeted that the price cap will, quote, help us stabilize global energy prices benefiting emerging economies around the world. Sure, or it could spike prices and deregulate everybody's economy. And particularly it benefits Europe that really is having a hard time paying the energy bills now that it cut itself off of cheap Russian gas. But not sure what planet she was schooled on in market economics, but former U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin certainly doesn't agree with the idea of a price cap when he called it unfeasible last month and, quote, the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard.
Look, a price cap, the market is going to set the price. So if you put sanctions on at higher prices, in a way you're just making the situation worse.
The big concern here among American officials who wanted a higher cap is a spike in oil prices and a deregulation of the global market. It's almost like there is pressure for the EU to ram something through before the weekend to avoid the embarrassing optics of getting to Monday, the day the price cap is supposed to be implemented, December 5th, and not actually having an agreement in place. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of talk in the EU about how much this is already worth, since Russian crude has already been selling for less than the proposed cap. And this move also introduces another risk factor. That is, Russia's position is that they simply won't sell to any countries implementing the ceiling. But White House National Security spokesman John Kirby welcomed the news.
A price cap will help limit Mr. Putin's ability to profiteer off the oil market so that he can continue to fund a war machine that continues to kill innocent Ukrainians. So we welcome the progress that our EU partners are making on this.
The whole idea is to reduce Russia's revenues so that Vladimir Putin can't spend it in Ukraine or, fulfill his Amazon wish list or maybe finish his Christmas shopping. What Kirby didn't say is that the U.S. Treasury Department has already granted exemptions to American companies transporting Russian oil, even if they're transporting it to some landlocked European countries, as long as they abide by the price cap. So much for Europe cutting off Russian oil revenues. Here's what the Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas thinks is happening with the price cap.
Every dollar counts. Every dollar that was negotiated down means an estimated $2 billion less income for Russia. The initial proposal was to set the price at $65. I thank partners who agreed to come down to $60. This means $10 billion less for Russia to finance a genocidal war against Ukrainians.
But Europe has also been importing Russian fuel transferred to the tankers of other countries offshore right before they offloaded into Europe. And they're also buying it from countries like China and India that have been binging on Russian oil and then, selling it to Europe and elsewhere. Also, since this price cap only affects Russian oil transported by sea, Hungary's pipeline oil from Russia has received an exemption to the cap, and the country's foreign minister said just a few days ago that that's the case. So Bulgaria also got an EU exemption to import Russian crude via maritime transport until the end of 2024. So that gives you an idea of how united the EU really is on all of this. And by the way, Japan has already reportedly been given a green light by the U.S. to keep importing Russian oil from their joint project with Moscow. One thing's for sure, though, the so-called defenders of the free market are pretty quick to throw out even their most cherished values and principles if it means taking another wild swing at Russian President Vladimir Putin, even though their batting average so far isn't very good. If they were hitting home runs, they probably wouldn't be talking already about a 9th round of sanctions.